He did not wake up one morning and decide to become someone different. It happened the way all real things happen, slowly, then all at once, in the dark, when no one was watching. His name does not matter. What matters is that you have seen him before, standing at the edge of something, eyes hollow, hands that forgot what they were capable of, a body that still moved even when the soul inside had gone quiet. He was the kind of man who used to run toward things, toward the field, toward the sound of the crowd, toward the version of himself he could almost touch. But somewhere along the way, he stopped running, and the world did not notice. The world never notices when a man stops. There was a time, not long before, when his legs could carry him farther than his mind could follow, when the morning felt like a beginning, not a debt. He had trained in a small yard behind a house that leaned against the wind. No equipment, no audience, just the earth beneath him and the burning in his chest that told him he was still alive. His mother used to watch from the doorway, her hands folded, her face saying what her mouth never would, that she was afraid for him and proud of him, and that those two feelings lived together in her like a long, unfinished prayer. But the injury came on a Wednesday. It always comes on an ordinary day. He heard something inside his knee that sounded like a door being closed. Not slammed, closed, quietly, the way people leave when they have decided they are not coming back. The months that followed were not dramatic. That is what no one tells you. Hardship rarely announces itself with thunder. It arrives like a slow leak, through the ceiling, through the walls, through the parts of you that you thought were solid. He sat in a room that grew smaller every week. He watched the window more than the door. He ate less than he needed and slept more than he should, which is the body's way of saying it has given up on daylight. The others who had trained with him—
His father came once, sat in the chair by the window, said nothing for a long time, then said, "The tree that bends in the storm does not break." The son said nothing back, because a man who cannot stand does not want to hear about trees. But the words stayed, the way all true things stay, even when we refuse them. There was a morning, gray, neither cold nor warm, the kind of morning that feels like the world has not yet decided what it wants to be, when he put his feet on the floor and simply stood. Not with hope, not with a plan, just stood. Because the alternative was to stop standing altogether. And something in him, some last quiet and stubborn corner of himself, refused that final surrender. He began again the way the poor begin most things, with almost nothing. A wall to push against, a floor to lie on, a body that screamed and a will that answered. There was no applause. There was no coach standing over him with words of fire. There was only him and the room and the slow, terrible work of becoming.
This is where the story turns, but not the way you expect. It did not turn into triumph. Not yet. Not easily. For every morning he rose, there was an evening he collapsed. For every wall he pushed past, there was a door inside him that swung shut. He wept without knowing why. He prayed without knowing if anyone listened. He carried both the faith and the doubt in the same hands, because a man on his knees cannot afford to choose only one. The discipline, he discovered, was not about the body. The body was only the surface. The real work was underneath, in the part of him that wanted to quit and did not. Not because he was strong, but because he had learned, finally, painfully, that quitting is not rest. It is a different kind of exhaustion.
It is the weariness of a man who has laid his tools down and must now live with the silence of unfinished work. He remembered an old woman from his village who used to carry water from a well 2 miles from her house. Every morning, every season.
Her back bent like a question mark, and the children used to watch her and say, "Why does she not ask for help?" And the answer came only years later, only now, only in this room, with aching knees and a cracked ceiling. She was not carrying the water for the water. She was carrying it to remember that she could. That is what discipline truly is. Not punishment, not performance. It is the daily act of choosing yourself, even when yourself has given you very little reason to. The season changed. His knee healed in the imperfect way that wounds heal, not back to what it was, but into something that could hold him. He was slower than before. He would always be slower than before. And this slowness became his teacher. Because the man who once ran without thinking was now forced to think with every step, to be present, to feel the ground, to understand that speed without awareness is just a man running away from himself. He returned to the field not as the person who had left it. That person was gone. In his place stood someone quieter, someone who knew the weight of a Wednesday morning and the mercy of a Thursday that followed. Someone who could look at a younger man, burning with impatience, and feel not envy, but recognition, because he had been that fire, and he had also been the ash, and now he was learning, slowly, how to become the warmth that remains after both have passed. There are no crowds in this ending, no victory that erases the suffering. The mother still stands in the doorway. The chair by the window still holds the shape of his father's silence. The knee still speaks on cold mornings, in its own private language of ache. But the man rises. Every morning the man rises. Not because he has been promised anything, not because the world has corrected its injustice toward him, but because somewhere inside the long, unremarkable discipline of simply continuing